Hachimitsu Academy is a strict boarding school. There are thousands of girls here, real hot girls, and only 5 boys. You heard that right, it's like a bun factory in here. The 5 boys are really, really horny and major simps, but none of them has the courage to speak to any of the girls. One boy, Kiyoshi, goes to talk, but the girls avoid him like he's a coughing patient during the lockdown. During class, Kiyoshi's sumo wrestling eraser catches the attention of Chiyo, who is apparently into sumo wrestling more than BTS. They get to talking about sumo and spend the whole break time bonding. She invites him to go watch a sumo match, and he happily agrees. Later that night, the other 4 boys make plans to peep into a girl's bath. They wear dark clothes and go on their noble mission to spy on the girls' naked bodies. Kiyoshi starts getting scared because Chiyo will also be there naked, but the other boys carry out their plans by dangling a phone to watch the video down there. However, the phone falls into the changing room. Since they were using Kiyoshi's phone, he goes down to retrieve it, only to get caught by Chiyo. What a tragedy. However, Chiyo turns out to have weak eyesight. She thinks that Kiyoshi is actually her friend, and she even takes him along to the girls' bathroom. Or, in other words, heaven. Kiyoshi's friends also get ready to go down, but some Itachi crows attack them. 2 women wearing tight uniforms come to them. Down in the baths, a girl comes and reports that the boys were caught peeping. All the girls run away from heaven, while Kiyoshi hides in the water. Outside, members of the Underground Student Council, or the USC, tie the 4 boys to the posts and go all medieval on them. Kiyoshi is hiding and watching their punishment when a girl comes and tells him that it is the USC's job to prevent sexual activities in school. So basically, these USC guys are cockblocks. The girl then reveals herself as the president of USC, Mari the Crowmaster. Kiyoshi is screwed. Mari beats him up and drags him to the rest of them. For their vile behavior, the 5 boys are sentenced to 1 month in the school's prison. They are tasked with various difficult tasks in the prison, and their punishment is overseen by the USC Vice President, Meiko. Meiko is quick to beat up the boys, and everyone is victim to her whips and humiliation. But the boys turn out to be masochistic, and they love it when Meiko beats them up. The giant boy, Andre, even wants to lick Meiko's boots willingly, so Meiko calls in the USC secretary, Hannah, to fix them up. Hannah is cheerful and nice, but she turns out to be a professional karate master and really enjoys beating them all up. And the boys really enjoy getting beaten up. Later, Kiyoshi sees a hurt crow, so he takes it and puts it in its nest. Chiyo is happy to see this kindness in him. She asks if Kiyoshi was also peeping or not, and he lies by saying no. Instead, he promises her that he will go watch the sumo match with her. Suddenly, Hannah chooses that same tree to pee under. Kiyoshi tries to keep quiet, but a crow attacks him and he falls on her. Top 10 anime deaths. Hannah starts crying out of embarrassment, so they're put under tighter security. The other boys congratulate Kiyoshi for making Hannah cry. President Mari's father turns out to be the chairman of Hachimitsu Academy, Chairman Kurihara. He commands Mari to give the Saturdays and Sundays holidays to the boys. Kiyoshi is happy to hear that, as he can use 1 weekend to go watch the sumo tournament with Chiyo. However, Mari is not satisfied with their work, so she rejects their weekend holidays. So, Kiyoshi plans to do a prison break just to go out with Chiyo. He starts making a hole in the trash shed. As he's coming out, Chiyo throws a paper ball at him, telling him about the time and location of the sumo tournament, which is in 2 weeks. Later, Kiyoshi's friend, Gakuto, finds the ball. Gakuto starts acting strangely in front of Kiyoshi, like pretending to sumo wrestle. Gakuto finds Kiyoshi's hole and he agrees to help him break out. Gakuto is a major Three Kingdoms fan, so he wants Kiyoshi to buy him some Three Kingdoms figurines at the major convention while he's out on his date with Chiyo. So, one day, they pretend to have an argument. Hannah comes and kicks them so hard the shed breaks down. As punishment for causing a disruption, Meiko decides to sit on Gakuto's face. Really? How is that a punishment? That's more like a blessing. We're going out of topic. Once she beats Kiyoshi, she makes them rebuild the shed while Hannah watches over them. Since they need some privacy for their plan, Gakuto attempts to seduce Hannah using historical facts? Bro took r/history memes way too seriously. Since Hannah is still embarrassed about Kiyoshi watching her pee, she forces him to drink lots of tea, causing his bladder to fill up. They go to the toilet together, where she commands him to pee in front of her. As they struggle with each other, Hannah slips and falls, pulling down his pants. And he pees all over her. His guy is going to get fricking murdered. Hannah becomes mentally unstable and takes a sick leave, which will make Kiyoshi's prison break easier. Since Meiko is the only one overseeing them, things become easier and they start breaking the wall. Once they get to a required size hole, Kiyoshi goes out for a test run. Suddenly, he sees Chairman Kurihara. Kurihara has a fetish for butts, and he has a collection of their pics. However, Mari saw them not once, but twice, so he's here to bury his butt collection. Kiyoshi has to hide, so he becomes late when returning and almost ends up getting caught, but he reaches back just in time. As Kiyoshi and Gakuto discuss their plans, their friend Shingo gets suspicious and tries to barge in on their conversation. That night, Meiko tells him that their next week's chores will be different because of the track and field event, which happens to be on the same day as Kiyoshi's date with Chiyo. On that day, they'll be working in a different location, far from the hole they made. Shingo starts eavesdropping on the two of them, and he accidentally sees them doing things that could be misunderstood as boy love. He starts to think that the two are gay. The next day, Kiyoshi finds an underground shaft that he can use on D-Day. As he's crawling through it, he overhears Shingo telling everyone that he and Gakuto were doing it in the showers. Kiyoshi is horrified to hear that. On top of that, Meiko starts doing squats right above his eyes. What a view. Suddenly, she slips and her thin heel drives right into his butt. When the other boys see the blood on his butt, they think that it's because of his business with Gakuto. Later, Gakuto requests an audio player for his English classes, but it's actually to play the sound of Kiyoshi pooping while he goes out on his date. So, Gakuto poops in his own pants to record the sound of pooping. Meanwhile, Chairman Kurihara has succumbed to temptation and taken out the butt pictures. So, he puts them in a pot and pours cement over it. But he sees the hole in the wall. Being the good chairman that he is, I think he plasters the hole as well. Kiyoshi and Gakuto are devastated to see their plans fold like this. Their anger pours out during dinner, catching the attention of their friends. Gakuto is especially devastated because he ruined his reputation by ruining his pants with his poop. So, Kiyoshi determines to break out no matter what. His plan? To cross-dress as a girl and walk out the front gate. Pretty bold, not gonna lie. For that, he will steal a girl's uniform from the laundry. They have 3 days until the breakout. Gakuto goes ahead with the plan, and one day, when President Mari comes to watch, he jumps forward and pulls her skirt. This boy is gonna get murdered. All hell breaks loose. Meiko beats him up. Even Mari's crow joins the fun. Gakuto tells Kiyoshi that he did that on purpose for their plan. That night, Meiko brings him in for his punishment, and she pulls out something that is blurred. And when Japan blurs something, you know what that means. It's a Nah, it's a hair trimmer. Meiko trims Gakuto's hair, which he brings back and gives to Kiyoshi. The hair will work as a wig for Kiyoshi's disguise. Kiyoshi thanks him for sacrificing so much for the mission. Gakuto says that it's worth it, as long as he gets his Three Kingdoms figurines. Next, they need to secure a girl's uniform. When they go to the laundry, a serviceman is working there, so Gakuto distracts him while Kiyoshi sneaks in. Kiyoshi almost gets caught a few times, but their mission is a success. Meanwhile, Mari scolds Meiko for what Gakuto did to her skirt earlier, so she commands her to be stricter. The day of the breakout finally arrives. All the girls prepare for the track and field, while Kiyoshi and Gakuto prepare the final phases of the plan. Chiyo also prepares food for their date with Kiyoshi. When the time is ripe, Kiyoshi enters the toilet and leaves the speaker with the pooping sound. He enters the shaft and reaches the place where he stashed the clothes. Meiko almost catches him, but he quickly puts on his wig and clothes, evading any suspicion. Next, he walks out of the gate like any of the schoolgirls. When Meiko asks where Kiyoshi is gone, Gakuto tells her that he's taking a very, very long poop. Meanwhile, Kiyoshi and Chiyo meet up and they have a pretty nice sumo date while eating her food. Meiko goes to check on Kiyoshi, but Gakuto plays the pooping sound and she gets creeped out and leaves. Elsewhere, Kiyoshi goes to the toilet and Chiyo accidentally sees the inside of his bag, the girl's uniform. She is disgusted by this and leaves him. Turns out, the uniform belonged to none other than Chiyo herself. Kiyoshi becomes depressed. And, to make it worse, Meiko is annoyed at Kiyoshi for taking so long. So, she goes in and breaks the door, even if he is supposed to be pooping. But Kiyoshi has already come back. Meiko scolds him and leaves. Seeing Kiyoshi in tears, Gakuto gets worried that his Three Kingdom figurines weren't bought. But Kiyoshi is a good friend, and he bought them. As they step out, Mari stops them. Turns out, Mari is Chiyo's elder sister, and Chiyo sent a picture of them together to Mari and Chairman Kurihara to show them how her day went. They check his bag. Seeing the hair and Chiyo's uniform, all of their plot is revealed. Shingo is angry at them because now all their prison sentences will be extended by 1 month. Mari and Meiko interrogate Kiyoshi. He tells them that he was acting alone and Gakuto was not involved. The final judgment is passed. The 4 boys' prison sentences are extended by 1 month, while Kiyoshi is expelled. Meiko reminds Mari that they don't have the authority to expel someone, so Mari shows her a form that can expel him if he fills it out. Chio recovers from her depression, and she is ready to listen to Kyo's explanation, but she is shocked to hear that Kiyoshi is about to be expelled. Meanwhile, Mari asks Kiyoshi to voluntarily drop out. She says that everyone knows what Kiyoshi did. He will be treated like a cockroach by all the girls for the rest of high school. Kiyoshi thinks that it's reasonable, and he gets ready to sign his name, but Chio stops him. She says that if Kiyoshi is wrong for going out with a girl, then Chio is wrong for going out with a boy. She also threatens to drop out. When Meiko stops her, Chio says that Kiyoshi once helped a baby crow that fell from its nest. Mari is shocked to hear that Kiyoshi was kind to a crow. Kiyoshi also promises to go into rehab and change his ways. So Mari gives him a chance. When Kiyoshi goes back, Gakuto welcomes him, but the others treat him coldly and even take his dinner. Meiko and Mari are not satisfied, and they secretly plan on making all the boys drop out. Life goes on, but it's slightly different for Kiyoshi. The boys treat him badly and even force Gakuto away from him. As he goes to clean the toilet, he runs into Hana, who has come back from her leave. She scares the crap out of him and leaves. Mari, Meiko, and Hana sit together and make plans to kick the boys out. Since the boys are shunning Kiyoshi and Shingo is their leader, Meiko calls him and offers him lots of tasty stuff. In return, she asks him to bring information about the boys. Shingo reveals that Joe is extremely in love with his ants. When Andre accidentally knocks down his ant farm, he was absolutely furious. One day, when Kiyoshi is resting, he sees Meiko giving instructions to Shingo. Kiyoshi also sees all the 3 USC members together, which he finds suspicious. According to instructions, Shingo distracts Joe. Then Mari sends her crows to attack his ants. When he rushes forwards, the USC members stop him. All of Joe's ants are killed, so he gets super angry and rushes towards Mari with a sharp weapon. But Kiyoshi stops him before he can do any harm. In the process, he himself gets stabbed. They take Joe into solitary confinement. There, they reveal that Mari's crow did not kill Joe's ants. It was only playing around. Andre brings his ants safely to him. Hana forcefully takes Kiyoshi to the infirmary to fix his wounds. When he is healing himself, Hana barges him and forces him to pee right in front of her. She is still not over her humiliation. Kiyoshi refuses, naturally. So instead, she prepares to pee on him. But just then, Chio enters the room. So they hide under the bed, really close to each other. As they lie down and wait, Hana starts feeling something touching her down there. Something cylindrical. She faints. Meanwhile, Shingo gets angry at Meiko for what they did to Joe. So, Meiko reminds him that if Shingo does not obey her, she will tell everyone about how he's been eating tasty food with her secretly. Later, when Shingo talks badly to Kiyoshi, Joe defends him. He even offers Kiyoshi water and starts treating him properly. He thanks him for stopping him, else he might have ended up in a real prison. Meanwhile, Meiko gives Shingo his uniform back with permission to go out for a couple of hours. So, Shingo takes up that offer and goes out. He has a nice time playing around in the arcade. There, he runs across Anju, another girl from the same school. Anju is really good at arcade games, and she has the top score in that place. When Shingo goes to the toilet, he finds the broken toy sword that fell from Gakuto's figurine. Not knowing what it is, he gives it to Meiko. She gets suspicious and checks the origin of the sword. She knows that Gakuto has an obsession with the Three Kingdoms era, and she eventually finds the figurine hidden in the toilet. So, she allows Shingo to go out again. At the arcade, Shingo meets Anju again. After they play, Anju treats him to ice cream. She also invites him over to a movie, which he accepts. Meanwhile, Meiko confronts Gakuto with the figurine, but Gakuto denies that it's his. Else, he will be revealed to have helped Kiyoshi on that date, and all their prison sentences will be extended. So, Meiko sits on the horse, threatening to break it. So, Gakuto rushes under Meiko's legs and takes the figurine. Meiko and Mari are now satisfied because this proves that the figurine belongs to him. Except Gakuto raises the figurine and brings it crashing on the floor. He gets up and calmly says that it's not his. What a Chad. Later, he apologizes to Kiyoshi for not being there for him when everyone shunned him. Mari is disappointed at Meiko for failing to bring out a confession. Meiko asks to be punished, but Mari just ignores her, which is an even worse punishment. Gakuto also reveals to the boys that he assisted Kiyoshi in the prison breakout. Shingo is angry at him. What a hypocrite! But Joe and Andre forgive Gakuto. Meanwhile, Mari gives Meiko a new uniform to wear, one that covers her breasts and thighs. Top 10 saddest anime moments. But the uniform is too tight for her, so she starts running out of breath and fainting every time. One day, Chio finds her falling, so she takes care of her. Suddenly, she sees the plan that the USC has prepared to kick out the 5 boys. One of their plans is to not beat up Andre. Yes, Andre, who loves being beaten up the most, is not beaten up by Meiko at all. This causes him to get frustrated because his sick fetish is not being fulfilled. Andre starts getting depressed and stops eating his food and stops showering. He starts losing himself. One day, Meiko lets out Shingo again, so he goes on a movie date with Anju. Back at the prison, Andre is lured outside by Meiko, but she stands just outside the prison fence, teasing him. She even tears out her tight dress and brings out her 2 buns. Andre is a man in lust, and he just wants that bust. He tears through the fence. The moment he does so, Hana comes in and holds him down, accusing him of prison break. Gakuto notices that the wires were already cut beforehand. While all this chaos is going down, Shingo is having a nice time on his date with Anju. Suddenly, he sees some kids bullying another kid, and that reminds him of how he bullied Kiyoshi. He starts repenting and tells Anju about how he's been helping Meiko. Suddenly, Anju starts crying. She reveals that this was just a hustle on him, and President Mari commanded her to waste Shingo's time in order to make him intentionally late. There are only 5 minutes left for Shingo to return. If he doesn't, they will all be expelled on account of 3 prison breaks. On the way, Shingo almost gets hit by the laundry truck, so the laundry guy gives him a lift back to school. Shingo rushes forward with 30 seconds remaining, but he is a little too late and he doesn't enter on time. This is seen as another prison break. With Kiyoshi's breakout, Andre's breakout, and now Shingo's breakout, it is 3 prison breaks, meaning that the boys will be expelled by the rules. Shingo asks the boys for forgiveness and is willing to accept any punishment they decide on. But the boys forgive him, and Kiyoshi is the first one to do so. Later, they are brought before the chairman to answer for their crimes. Chiyo tries to defend them, saying it was a setup by the USC, but Mari denies it, as the USC has already destroyed any evidence of their plans. Because of the circumstances, Chairman Kurihara agrees to expel the boys after the board meeting, which is in 2 weeks. Later, Anju reveals to Mari that she liked Shingo and she revealed her part in their plan. Kiyoshi is also not willing to admit defeat so easily. If they can prove that they were set up by the USC, they can avoid being expelled. Shingo thinks about the codename that the USC used in their plans, DTO. He remembers seeing it in Meiko's office during the times he spent there eating those tasty, tasty food. He saw the code DTO in an email thread, but the emails might have been deleted. Gakuto says that he can retrieve those deleted emails, but they need to break into the office first, and they only have 2 weeks left. They consider all their options and time, but they don't find any openings. So Gakuto suggests taking the keys from Meiko. However, they know that she is too strong for them, so they decide to bait her. They have an arm wrestling tournament where they talk like Andre is the strongest person and not even Meiko could beat her. Meiko gets offended, so she takes up their challenge. They intend to take her jacket, but she wears it while playing with them. As they play, Gakuto knocks the table over. Kiyoshi runs face first into Meiko's nip. Let's focus on the story. In the confusion, Gakuto steals the keys. Since he's the only one who knows how to retrieve the emails, he goes to Meiko's office while the others distract her. But Kiyoshi and Shingo lose her way too easily. While Gakuto downloads the email retriever, Meiko sends Joe flying with her arm wrestling. Next is Andre's turn. She gets seriously distracted and loses her strength. She starts imagining all sorts of wild stuff while Andre takes advantage. While Gakuto races against time to install the software, Meiko closes her eyes and finally defeats Andre. She realizes that her keys are lost, but Gakuto arrives just in time, pretending that the keys had fallen down. They are safe from Meiko, but once she leaves, Gakuto reveals that he had only enough time to download and install the restoration software, and it's all because of that crappy internet going around. He did not have time to retrieve the emails. Now, their expulsion is pretty much confirmed. The boys cry to sleep that night. The boys lose all their drive and spirits. Gakuto even goes completely mad. They now have 2 days left before the chairman approves their expulsion. One day during dinner, Kiyoshi gets a message from Chiyo hidden in the bread, so Kiyoshi replies back. Gakuto also comes back to his senses and makes a plan involving Chiyo. That night, Meiko brings them the withdrawal forms. They plan to fill it out while also sending an appeal to the chairman about the DTO. That will buy them some time while they do some other stuff. They write their appeal disguised as a confession note, but Meiko tears it. How cruel! Then she takes them to the chairman. However, the chairman found out about all this because Kiyoshi had hidden another appeal within his own withdrawal form. Chairman Kurihara comes to their prison to hear their appeal. Turns out, Kiyoshi wrote to him saying that he knows about the butt pictures that the chairman had hidden. But that was just to get his attention. Kiyoshi tells him about the DTO and asks the chairman to postpone the expulsion. The chairman asks them a question to test them. What do they like more, breasts or butts? This man really has his priorities set. Kiyoshi remembers how much the chairman likes butts, so he himself says butts, even though he actually likes breasts. He even gives a deep and insightful 10,000-word essay about why butts are better. The chairman is impressed and accepts his answer. However, he cannot give them 1 week, so he gives them 1 day to do whatever it is they need to do. The boys will have to make the best out of what they have. They plan to distract Meiko again while Gakuto sneaks into her office. This time, they'll be using butt wrestling. However, Hana decides to take over from now on, and she is not interested in butt wrestling. Before leaving, she promises to do something to Kiyoshi's sausage as revenge for the incident under the nurse's bed. Kiyoshi makes a plan to use Hana's anger to get into Meiko's office. Meanwhile, Chiyo is reading Kiyoshi's note. Anju comes to her and sees the note. Instead of ratting out on her, she offers to help Chiyo in saving the boys, as she has started to develop feelings for Shingo. That night, Kiyoshi pretends to hurt Gakuto, so Hana takes Kiyoshi away. She takes him to Meiko's office, where she brings out a pair of scissors to chop off his sausage? She actually uses it to cut a bottle and commands him to pee into it. So Kiyoshi calmly removes his pants, much to Hana's shock. So she also pulls out her pants to pee all over him. Top 10 anime plot twists. Meanwhile, Chiyo and Anju are waiting for Kiyoshi near the prison back doors, but Anju is caught by Meiko, who is on patrol. But this was all according to plan. Now that Meiko has taken Anju away, Chiyo will be free to move around. Kiyoshi accidentally sees Hana's, well, you know, her kitty cat. Hana breaks down crying. She always gets into these embarrassing situations with Kiyoshi, and she hasn't gotten her revenge yet. In her frustration, she beats up Kiyoshi. Then she leans forward and kisses him. This is her revenge, to steal his first kiss from Chiyo. Meanwhile, Anju is being tortured by Meiko's face-sitting. Once again, I really consider this less of a torture and more of a blessing. Chiyo sneaks into the prison grounds while Hana is forcing herself on Kiyoshi. Since Kiyoshi needs to get the door open, he too gives himself completely to Hana. Hana is shocked and her brain starts getting overwhelmed with pleasure. Kiyoshi brings out his A-game until Hana just faints right then and there. Kiyoshi unlocks the door, but Chiyo arrives at the place just then and she starts opening the door. So Kiyoshi yells at her to stop. Hana also wakes up, but instead of doing anything, she is too tired and starts leaving. So Kiyoshi goes with her while Chiyo sneaks into Meiko's office. Meanwhile, Anju has fainted under Meiko's weight without revealing anything. But Mari is still suspicious that the boys are up to something, so they go to check. But the boys are sleeping. Mari starts gloating in victory with the guarantee that the boys will be expelled tomorrow. The next day, the boys are taken to the chairman to be expelled. As the chairman brings out the expulsion papers, someone starts chasing the girls on the school grounds. Suddenly, Kiyoshi says that they've won. Turns out, Gakuto has been replaced by Joe, and Joe has been replaced by Chiyo. And the one that was chasing the girls around was actually Gakuto. They bring Gakuto to the office where he stands up calmly. Last night, after Chiyo entered the prison, she went to the toilet. There, she, Gakuto, and Joe exchanged clothes. Then, Gakuto went and brought out the DTO emails. When Mari and Meiko came to check, he had left by the back door. Then, Gakuto brings out the data from inside his butt. Chairman Kurihara takes the pen drive and sees all the things that the USC had been doing to the boys, including the brutality and the setups. Hana gets angry at being used, so she tries to beat up Kiyoshi. However, Mari comes in between, saying that it's all over. She takes full responsibility for everything that the USC did to the 5 boys. Chairman Kurihara decides not to expel the boys after all. Their first ever crime of peeping into the girls' bathroom is declared to have been paid by their 2-month prison sentence. The boys are finally free! In the post-credits, we see the boys getting back into their high school lives normally. A girl named Kate, who is the president of the Above Ground Student Council, or ASC, tells Chairman Kurihara that the USC has violated human rights rules and that they should be put in prison. Chairman Kurihara does not believe in nepotism and he sentences the 3 USC members to prison. They are replaced by the ASC, led by Kate. Kate steps forward and tears Mari's clothes. First of all, are all the girls in this school that strong? And second of all, really, Kurihara? You're really gonna sit there and watch this ish? Your own daughter being humiliated like this? Meiko, being loyal as ever, steps forward to protect Mari, but the ASC vice president stops her. They force the USC members to wear prison uniforms. After that, the ASC members